Joined here by Senator Russ Feingold on Scope Radio, and wanted to have him on the show to discuss the lecture he'll be delivering on Wednesday, October 26th here in Evanston. It's the 22nd Annual Leopold Lecture, and Senator, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. I am thrilled to be coming to Northwestern, not only because of the university, but specifically what an honor to give the address in memory and honor of Professor Leopold, who I'm well aware of, and it's just a terrific invitation. And I do want to talk about what's been going on in this country since 9/11 and whether we've handled things right, so I can't think of a better opportunity. So greatly looking forward to it.
Great, yeah, it's been a great series so far, and we're happy to have you on campus here. And I do want to talk about what you'll be covering in the lecture. It's called While America Sleeps, a Wake-Up Call for the Post-9/11 Era. So with that, I just want to touch on some of the topics you'll be covering, such as, I know, you could write a whole book about it, and I think you are, right?
I just did.
So there you go, yeah.
The title of my book. That's what my book's called.
Right, exactly. So I know you can go into this some length, but speaking generally, what are some of the areas that America has, either done wrong or not done at all domestically or abroad since 9/11?
Well, you asked that question in a good way. I really talk about both the foreign and domestic aspects of what I consider to be the mistake. In the book I talk about, and in the lecture I'll talk about some of the errors we made, obviously, getting into Iraq. But even worse than that, it seems like we've had an approach that involves intervening and occupying countries rather than actually looking at the nature of Al-Qaeda and the threats out there and being able to understand regions as they interrelate to each other. Instead, we tend to look at it as a military intervention or a manhunt instead of something that's really much more complicated. Another theme that I'm pursuing in the book is the way in which we go into a place sometimes like Iraq or Afghanistan. We have this attitude that we have to stay there forever. We seem to be unable to say, wait a minute, this is enough, and this has already served our purposes, or this isn't working out. And I'll be talking a little bit about how what we've done in Libya and maybe even what's going on in Uganda right now are maybe a little bit better approach than the approaches we've taken. On the domestic side, I'm going to talk about the mistakes that have been made in limiting civil liberties in a way that was unnecessary, damage to our Constitution, the unfortunate way in which Muslims have been treated in this country on a number of occasions, and the general failure now, especially because of the Tea Party and others, to have serious conversations about foreign policy anymore. We got a wake-up call on September 11th, 2001. And we stayed awake for a while after that. We may not have gotten all the calls right, but it seems like the public debate is slipping away from the rest of the world at a time when we have to be connected to the rest of the world. So I'll be discussing some of those trends that I don't think enough people are talking about.
And what are some of the international problems going on right now that the U.S. isn't dealing with at all or correctly, in your opinion?
Well, we're just not coming up with a systematic approach to our foreign policy that really shows that we learned anything from 9/11. 9/11 was a moment we found out that our ability to connect to many of the countries in the world, especially Islamic countries in the world, was very weak, and that we had a very bad reputation in those countries. We have not taken the steps as a people and as a government to get very serious about changing that. We have sort of taken the attitude, especially since the economic collapse in 2008, that we should just deal with things at home. And it's almost like because Osama bin Laden was killed, people are saying, well, I'm glad that's over. But it's not over. The situations that can lead to this kind of a terrorist organization continue. And even with the Arab Spring, we see the possibility of having more democratic regimes there, but we also see the consequences of our having supported very extreme authoritarian regimes and developing resentments toward the United States that harm us in the long term. So I see a real disconnect between those who are involved in our policy making and foreign policy and the rest of the government and the American people. We are not paying attention as we should in a way, as I would say from the title of my book, we've almost gone back to sleep into sort of a hibernation on these things.
Right. And it seems like people are getting a bit more politically active, at least on the economic front, with the Occupy movement. wanted to get your opinions on what's going on these days with the Occupy movement and how that relates to what you're doing with Progressives United.
You bet. Yeah. No, I happen to support the Occupy Wall Street movement. Was one of the first people to say it's about time people stood up. So when I say that we've gone asleep on foreign policy, I'm not saying there's no political activism. There is, especially on domestic issues. So what I'm advocating for is that we be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We do need to stand up to the unlimited corporate money that's trying to buy our political process. Progressives United, which I founded, is all about countering the Citizens United decision and the sickening impact on corporate money on our political system. And of course it has international implications too, because where do these corporations ship our jobs to? They ship them overseas in unholy alliances with a number of these governments. So I want the political activism at the local level here in the United States to connect with the issues that are international, but I couldn't possibly be more excited about a real citizens movement to challenge the power of Wall Street and the power of big money in Washington and the unwillingness of the very wealthy elements of our society at this point to help us solve our problems. They need to be part of the solution. They can't just build a wall around themselves.
That's right. And how would you suggest to, our listeners on campus and in the community, how can they get involved locally to make a difference, to kind of lessen the impact of corporations on government?
Well, first they should come to my lecture and buy my book. I'm just kidding. But I think being involved both in protests of this kind, in other words, that kind of mass movement, combined with substantive understanding of what's going on through reading and lectures and connecting to the Internet on some of these international issues. People should also, as I write in the book, try to figure out a way with our help, the help of different organizations, to spend time overseas, trying to positively connect with people in other countries, whether it's a carpenter or a violin player or a dairy farmer. We need to improve our connections around the world. So I'm looking for private diplomacy as well as public diplomacy as a national movement in addition to what we can do while we are here physically in the United States.
Right, and people can actually join up with your organization, Progressives United, on your website?
ProgressivesUnited.org, and I would strongly urge them to. Many, many people have, and we think it's an exciting way to challenge corporate power in this country and want to invite everyone to join. Thanks so much for having me on the show, and I look forward to being on campus very soon.
Okay, great. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Fantastic. Bye-bye.
WNUR, Chicago, The Scope Radio, G-Stro, DJ Deluge, and Wes Restless.